Okay, so the purpose of today's video is to remake the hoot bottle opener, and I'm going to do that with my new Sony Action Cam. We make this opener out of 3/4 by 1/4 stock, which I'm going to put in the fire while I explain the punches. Alright, for this I usually use a pretty large hammer. This one's one I made several years ago as my prototype. And the reason for that is when I'm drifting this hole, I like to have some mass behind me. Okay, so basically the punches, you have a slot punch. Alright, and for that we're going to do a just larger than 3/4 hole here. Now this is only half an inch wide, so I'm basically going to overlap a section and you'll see that. Then we move over to the bolster plate and we have a 1/2 inch drift, a 3/4 drift, and then this rascal here, which is a little bit larger than 1 inch, but the hole in my bolster is 1 inch, so when this stops, I know I'm good. These punches give this a nice flat finish, so you don't have to go to the horn and get a lot of hammer marks. It allows you to have nice smooth metal to index your wings and whatnot, and everything looks pretty good. So I'm going to get some of these on the ground and we're going to get started. Alright, so I'm going to come in a 1/2 inch from that edge, make sure I'm centered, give myself some overlap, turn my punch. Now I always lift my punch out of the material because it gives the punch a few seconds to cool off. Alright, we got a little shine on the back, we're going to flatten that out, come back in, tap, and get ready to flip. Alright, now we're going to grab that little 1/2 inch drift and go to the hardy and just knock it the rest of the way out. I do that because you don't want to take a slot punch and have to dress it all the time. Alright, so there's your hole. Not perfect. I never seem to do them perfect when there's a camera or audience involved. It is what it is. Now next I'm going to drift, but I'm going to drift a 1/2 inch hole on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and put it up in the fire. That way, when I come out of the fire, I go straight to the bolster plate. After this, we're going to move the camera, and hopefully that gives you all a good view. Now this vise is not bolted down. I use it all over the shop, so next is 3/4. Now as I do this, when I put my steel back in the fire, I get my next drift or punch or whatever ready. Now always make sure these fit through the hole. If they don't, you might jam them up. That's going to slow down your whole day. So same thing. Get it started. So like I said earlier, this one does not fit through the hole. So I'll use it into the material, bring it out, flip the material, put it back in, and that'll give me a nice symmetrical hole that's 1 inch. Bring it over. I put a little bit of side twist force on this, and then flip. There we have a 1 inch hole. So we're going to move this camera back because we no longer need that. Back over to the Nimba. Alright, so my next step is going to be with a 3/8 ball. This helps me center up the eyes. This is not the final punch for the eyes, but it's also what I'm going to use for the actual opener part. So it's got multiple uses. Alright, so I'm going to index my eyes. I'm going to get this edge of the punch right to the edge of Now I use this because it's easier on this punch to kind of get these centered and start working the material. Plus it's what I'm going to use for this part anyways. So it works out in a nice fluid operation. So in the next heat we're going to come in. We're going to put this a lot further in, but as you can see, I've got these where I need it. This punch is so large, it really covers up your vision to see if you have them aligned. Like I said, use your time in the fire to set up your tools for the next operation. You don't want to come out of the fire losing all your heat and then try to accomplish something. Alright, so I come on out. I've got good heat. See, it gets real solid. That's what I want. Alright, so now I grab this one, set it in that pocket. There you go. Now we've still got some heat in this. So there's a few more operations I can go ahead and do. I can go ahead and, I don't need a lot of heat to make the top of his head. I don't need a lot of heat to make his wings. And I don't need all that much heat to make his little eyes. I like to make him kind of cross-eyed. I think it looks better. But it all comes down to personal taste. Back in the fire. So, the next step, follow his ears and his toes, make his beak, and of course this is from Incandescent Ironworks. That's my touch mark. You can go ahead and touch mark the back of him here. It's good and hot, doesn't need a whole lot of heat. Not normally shaky, I must have had too much coffee this morning. side set butcher, and we're going to come in and make his beak. Now this piece of material has some weird cold shut in it. But there you have the Hoot Owl bottle opener. As you can see, it's very similar to the other one. You can make their eyes bigger, smaller. You can kind of do what you want, but this is the basics of how to get there. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off so it just is a pocket-sized opener, and I'll show you that part, and then we're going to wrap it up. Now while that's in the fire, I'll explain this punch I use to do the wings and the top of his head, and also to cut it off if I'm not going to use him as a finial for something else. This is not completely flat. It's rounded. Not a whole lot, but just a little, and there's a reason for that. So I don't want to mess up my anvil, obviously. No one does. So I use this punch where I know it's the deepest, or this chisel rather, back and forth on the sides, and that keeps me off my anvil. Have it. More hoot owls. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helps you in your blacksmithing journey. See you next time.